I got to see the medical technology of the future this year at CES 2023 thanks to Abbott, and in today's video I'm gonna go through some of the incredible products that I learned about, do a bit more of a deep dive into what they're offering and what they're changing in healthcare. This is pretty incredible, so you're gonna wanna stick around to the end. This is the iStat TBI Plasma Test. If you know anything about concussions, you know that they can be incredibly difficult to detect. We do CT scans of the head, but that's looking for large signs of trauma like a hemorrhage or essentially a bleed inside of the brain. But during a concussion, there's no bleeding in the brain. It's more of like a bruise type injury to the brain. And just like when you have a bruise and the blood leaks out into your skin leaving a mark, well, when the brain is injured, proteins actually leak out into the blood. Now, Abbott and their team, headed by Dr. Beth McQuiston, have pioneered an incredible device known as the iStat TBI Plasma Test. The goal of this device is to aid in the evaluation of a concussion, and it does that by looking at proteins. The protein is known as GFAP. When combined with another protein with a much longer name, known as UCH-L1, that can help clinicians in the evaluation of a concussion. What was very exciting, as you're seeing now, is that I did get to put my hands on the device there. I got to actually hold the iStat, the cartridge, and kind of see how it works and go through a demonstration. Now, a CT scan really may not add much in most situations. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, it's looking for a bleed, but if someone who comes in has a normal neurologic exam and you really have a low suspicion, the CT scan may not be the best test, and that's kind of where it's interesting to look at this future technology. But speaking of neurologic function, Abbott had some incredible devices that were at the show. One that I found particularly interesting was the deep brain stimulation technology. Now, this is an implantable deep brain stimulator. And who needs deep brain stimulation? Well, think of a person with Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's causes tremors that can be very disruptive to a person's life. Well, Abbott has been on the cutting edge of producing a deep brain stimulator, something that can essentially send impulses to try and block out the signal that's causing the tremor. If you send the opposite signal or a way to interfere with that signal, then maybe you can decrease the amount of tremors that a patient would experience. Specifically, the device has been shown to be a highly effective medical therapy for those with essential tremors. Essential tremors are those things that can affect your activities of daily living, writing, speaking, eating, so the ability to potentially cancel those out or make them less could be tremendously helpful for someone with an essential tremor. Let's talk about the Infinity Deep Brain Stimulator. This can be used to target a few areas of the brain: the subthalamic nucleus, the ventral intermediate nucleus, or the internal globus pallidus. Now, what's pretty cool about the Infinity DBS is this actually has iOS integration, meaning that patients can access this and adjust their settings from the comfort of their iPhone. Clinicians also benefit from this, being able to use things like an iPad to make adjustments rather than having some big, bulky device. Now, Abbott's been working on a study called Progress, and if you want to geek out and learn more about it, we'll link it down below, but the technology in the Infinity Deep Brain Stimulator was mind-blowing, especially as someone who's not in neurology. Now, before we leave the deep brain stimulators, there's one other indication that I had no idea was an option. You probably know the state of mental health in this country is not great. I've done a number of videos on 988 and the amount of psychological emergencies that come into the emergency department every day. But in July of 2022, Abbott got the okay from the FDA to start investigating deep brain stimulation for treatment-resistant depression. And while I'm not an expert in depression or mental health treatment, I did want to bring this up because I thought it's such an incredible application, again, of this neuromodulatory technology to actually target the brain itself and the signals that could be causing these symptoms. Again, this is in the early stages, so if you want to learn more about the research Abbott is doing, all of that is linked down below. Last up is my favorite piece of technology from the show. Everyone has their little nerd area that they like in medicine, and for me, it's always been cardiology. I just think the heart is fascinating. Apparently, Abbott does too, and they've created a device known as the CardioMEMS. CardioMEMS feels like sci-fi, and as you're seeing on screen now, the device is tiny. It's about the size of a paperclip, and a cardiologist can place this into the pulmonary artery. If we're measuring pulmonary artery pressures, then we can tell when there's a backup, and a backup can indicate heart failure or worsening heart failure. While this is an oversimplification, it helps you to understand why pulmonary artery pressures matter. In fact, that's why we monitor these in the ICU. Well, the CardioMEMS can actually give telehealth data. This feels like sci-fi, but it's really happening. That means live-time feedback to a physician who can monitor the device and the pressures, and this may help patients reduce admissions to the hospital for heart failure exacerbation. If we could continuously monitor the pulmonary artery pressure, and we could note that it was starting to get more full or higher pressure, well, then maybe we could catch a heart failure exacerbation before it became very serious. In the emergency department, I see horrific exacerbations of CHF all the time. They often require admission, so this technology in particular really excites me. The idea of being able to keep people out of the hospital, feeling better, and overall potentially having better outcomes through something like telemedicine. Again, I don't know how else to say it except it feels like sci-fi. Now, there's much more to the science of how CardioMEMS works, and as with all of the other incredible devices, if you're interested in learning more, I have it all linked down below. And if you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to hit subscribe for more medical technology. We're bringing lots of exciting stuff to the channel this year, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Remember I talked about the iStat TBI earlier in the video? Well, there's some real-world applications and ways to really understand this technology. You see, TBIs come in all shapes and sizes, and small TBIs, while they may not be a problem on their own, they're cumulative, so multiple small or medium-sized TBIs can add to one big insult to the brain. Therefore, even detecting mild TBIs can have a significant impact long-term. But don't take it from me. Here's former pro snowboarder Kevin Pierce.
I'm here with Kevin Pierce, former professional snowboarder, the survivor of a very severe traumatic brain injury.
10 years ago, I was training for the Olympics and I got a concussion and I kind of just wiped it off, didn't really think about it. And then a week and a half later, I hit my head again. Because I was already injured, it ended up being a very severe traumatic brain injury that ultimately ended my snowboard career and kind of left me high and dry.
It's pretty incredible to hear right from Kevin about his experiences. Now, I want to thank Abbott again for this opportunity. There's been some incredible technology displayed in this video. Again, if you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.